now, Paul Clark presents coverage of the Northern Ireland Assembly election results. Here's Vote 22.
It's Saturday, May the 7th. Could this be a defining day in Northern Ireland's history? Sinn Féin looks set to become the biggest party at Stormont, but will Michelle O'Neill become the first nationalist to hold the position of First Minister? The answer to that depends on what the DUP does next. Its first preference vote is down by almost 7%. Meanwhile, the alliance surge continues, but already the SDLP has suffered some major casualties, with the party's only minister, Nicola Mallon, under serious pressure to keep her seat. With day two of the counting now well underway, the focus is on how many seats Sinn Féin and the other parties will take. Stay with us, we'll have the very latest for you over the next 2 hours. And welcome to our continuing coverage of Vote 22, where we will be analysing all the latest results, and our team here in the studio will include our political editor Tracy McGee and the commentator David McCann, and Professors Deirdre Heenan from Ulster University and Peter Sherlow from the University of Liverpool. And bringing us the latest happenings from the three count centres, our team of correspondents and reporters in Belfast, Matterfeld and Jordanstown. And just to advise you, there will be flash photography throughout this programme. So let's take a look at the state of the parties at the time coming up to 22 minutes to 12 on this Saturday morning. And Sinn Féin are on 18, the DUP on 14, Alliance 10, Ulster Unionists 4, SDLP 3 and others amount to 2. Let's see where that leaves us in terms of the percentage of the first preference votes. And as you can see there, Sinn Féin way ahead of the DUP, and there are the other figures and the other parties coming up. Now let's take a look at the change in the percentage poll between this vote and 2017. Sinn Féin are up, the DUP down almost 7%, Alliance up almost 5%, and you can see the other figures there on the screen. So a second day of counting is underway, and it could see a number of casualties and a number of victories. Now, by the end of the day, we should have the final seat numbers and the makeup of the next assembly. However, we already have a fair idea of the direction of travel. Jordan Motes has been taking a look at the state of play.
A quiet campaign replaced by loud celebrations. Sinn Féin will be regarded as the winners of this election. When the dust settles, they'll be in a position to claim the First Minister's office.
The political landscape of the North has changed, and it has changed utterly. It has changed utterly and for the better. An historic Rubicon has been crossed. And we did say that it was an election which would be the most important election of a generation. An opportunity to elect a First Minister for all. And that message has been resoundingly endorsed, not just here in South Antrim, but right across the north of Ireland.
There's a lot of contemplation going on within the DUP. Their fight to remain the largest party was futile. Elections are often emotional times, and that bore through for them in South Belfast. Edwin Poots elected to the seat, last won by the late Christopher Stolford.
Should have been Chris here. We've done it for him. We're just delighted that we've done it. We've done him proud. We really think the world of Chris. Just so sorry he's not here for this. He'd have loved it. He'd loved every part of it. And he would have got elected really well. So we're just so delighted that we've done this. But really, this is for Chris.
The DUP's vote share was squeezed by critic-in-chief Jim Allister. The TUV took nearly 66,000 first preference votes, but that's not expected to turn into seats.
Disappointed that across the country, though we have tripled our vote and have 7.6%, that is not reflected in the number of seats. Unlike previously when the Alliance Party had 7.7%, they won 8 seats. TV is 7.6%, which is a massive increase, but is not going to win a corresponding number of seats.
With so many new faces, Naomi Long was at risk of running out of hugs as she celebrated. The surge of the middle ground will likely mean 3 parties now dominate at Stormont.
Well, we're taking the votes from people in Northern Ireland who actually want progressive politics. They want people who are committed to delivery. They want people who have had enough of the drama and actually want to focus on delivering for the people who elect them. That's where the votes come from. They belong to the people. They have rested them with us, and we intend to go in and fight our corner to make sure that we can deliver. There's still people at this stage in the count who are getting jobs that they don't want to do, and you have to question why anybody stands for election if at the end of the day they don't want to work on behalf of the people who elected them.
All that comes at a cost, and the SDLP is feeling the pressure.
So it's a difficult day. I don't think anyone should underplay that or is going to underplay that. This is a tough day for our party. Our party has a really proud history. We've got amazing activists, and we've got people who are proud of our contribution to this island, and so it is a difficult day. We're still in the hunt in several races, so the counts are still happening. But I think it is a difficult day, and there are people who won't return to Stormont that I'm very sad about.
With counts spilling over, the Ulster Unionists are facing a nail-biting wait to see if they can pick up the 5th seat in a number of areas. Leader Doug Beattie is one still waiting to hear his fate.
We all need to go back to work, and very soon on Monday, or indeed Tuesday, we need to get back to make Northern Ireland a much better place. The question we need to ask is not why Northern Ireland is the way it is, but why it can't be made much better. And I think we'll be able to do that. And it's up to us as MLAs to get back in there to make that happen.
With around 40 seats still to be declared, the final total is still not clear, but the picture emerging is one of political change.
Jordan Moats with the story of the day so far. Now, with me in the studio, we've got our panel, Tracy, David, Deirdre and Peter. I'm going to start with you, Tracy. Well, after yesterday and the seismic move that happened then, what questions arise today?
Well, yes, yesterday was an absolutely amazing day. What we saw was political realignment in Northern Ireland, nothing short of that, and it continues today. Now we're into the weeds of the voting now, and it's at this point then the picture starts to become clear. It comes into focus. These transfers that we've been talking about relentlessly really come into play, and there's a number of questions we want to know the answer to. Not least of all, will the Ulster Unionist leader, Doug Beattie, retain his seat in Upper Bann? He is in a tussle there. Where will that leave the Ulster Unionist Party? Where will they finally land? Ryan McCready in Foyle is fighting hard, could potentially save the party's blushes. Also too, how bad could this get for the SDLP? They are in a fight in a lot of places. Most important of all, their deputy leader, Nicola Mallon, she looks in trouble in North Belfast. And then after that, will the alliance surge continue? Will they get the seats that they have been tipped to get? And finally, at the end of it all, what happens next? I suppose that's a question for tomorrow, but when we finally know the full picture, where do we go from here?
Lots of questions, Deirdre Heenan. Any answers coming?
Well, I think Tracy has summed it up very well. On the one hand, it seemed very predictable that Sinn Féin would do well and indeed have done well and look set to claim the First Minister's role. But on the other hand, huge differences in the landscape that we had not predicted. We're going to have fewer women. We've lost some big names. Dolores Kelly's gone, Roy Beggs has gone, Ulster Unionist leaders in a tussle for his seat. The Greens have gone. So yes, the middle ground, there has been the alliance surge, which was widely predicted, but I don't think many people predicted it at the expense of the Greens. People for profit have halved their vote in West Belfast. Again, that wouldn't have been predicted. And we're looking at a tussle in it, going down to the 5th seat in Foyle, for example. We will be very interested to see what happened there. But a very, very difficult day, I think, for both the Ulster Unionist Party and the SDLP, who will be having a post-mortem and saying what has gone wrong. But Sinn Féin will say they ran a flawless campaign and have gains across the north, which is incredible.
David McCann, while we're talking about the expanding middle ground here, the two big blocks are still there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sinn Féin have had a bumper result. In fact, actually, I think this is the strongest result for a nationalist party in an assembly election in our history. Actually, 29% of the vote. So it's absolutely record. And don't forget, we thought 2017 couldn't get any better, but Sinn Féin have taken it beyond to where they could potentially maybe make a gain in somewhere like East London there, although that is looking a bit more tenuous. So looking like they're holding their 27, potentially come back with one more. So again, very, very strong. And the DUP, their vote share is down substantially. This is the second biggest swing away from any party since 1998, just nearly on par with Reg MP's big swing in 2007. It's the lowest percentage share for a lead unionist party since David Trimble in 1998. But the DUP were smart. They ran fewer candidates, and that has saved them in constituencies like North Belfast, East Belfast, North Antrim, and those have made a difference.
And I'm sorry, just before we move on to Vicky Hawthorne, to you, Peter Sherlow, as I said, the two big blocks are still there, but who is occupying the expanding middle ground? Who are those voters?
Well, the two big blocks are there. Sinn Féin have done well, but they're only up 1%. You know, let's keep this in some sort of balance. And this is not a big jump towards Irish unity, etc. There's a bit of an electoral crisis here for unionism. And what we're really looking at here is probably, as we find every time we survey after an election, is many pro-union people stayed at home. They were not motivated by coming out to simply vote to keep Sinn Féin out. But the answer to your question is, of course, the Alliance Party. The middle ground hasn't really expanded here. Okay, it's just reordered where the votes are. So you've now ended up...
Who are the electors?
Well, it's a mixture of people. You always had historically a more pro-union type person who would have voted for the Alliance. But in the tracker polls we did, you saw SDLP voters were starting to move into that space as well, and even some Sinn Féin and other voters. But if you actually look at this statistically, the Alliance Party is now, in terms of its total number of votes compared to the Ulster Unionists and the SDLP, they're 20% bigger than the Ulster Unionists and 33% bigger than the SDLP. And that's just been the vacuuming up of those two parties.
That is quite a statistic, one we can revisit shortly, because we're going to cross live now to our reporters at the Count Centre, so we can join Vicky Hawthorne in Belfast, who's been keeping an eye on the constituencies of North and West Belfast and Strangford. Vicky.
Candidates with the lowest votes.
Yes, good morning, Paul. Sorry, just in the background, we're getting the latest announcement and the latest stage of the counting for West Belfast. We have nobody new over the line since yesterday in West Belfast. It still remains as one Sinn Féin candidate has been elected. It's looking like three further will follow Danny Baker there, and the last seat in West Belfast is coming down to a fight between the People Before Profits, Jerry Carroll, and Frank McCoubry from the DUP, and that would be a real success for the DUP in West Belfast if that were to happen. In North Belfast, just reflecting on what Tracy was saying to you there in the studio, yes, this potentially could be a terrible day for the SDLP there. Very tight fight there for Nicola Mallon, the deputy leader of the SDLP. The Nuala McAllister from the Alliance Party, she is a few hundred votes ahead of Nicola Mallon there, and it really is Nicola Mallon is fighting for her political career in that seat. And also I'm keeping an eye on Strangford for you this morning, Paul. There again, we've had no further developments since yesterday. It still stands as one alliance and two DUP elected there. The Ulster Unionist Mike Nesbitt, he's feeling a bit much more confident today than he was yesterday. He's looking like he'll get over the line next potentially, and then that fifth seat is whether the Alliance's Nick Matheson could potentially try to edge out the TUV, but the TUV's Stephen Cooper has done well there and could potentially take that fifth seat in Strangford.
Vicky, thank you very much indeed for that update and analysis. Our tour of Northern Ireland will continue after the break with Gareth Wilkinson. Do stay with us.